Let's get started here. Mike Ritsema with i3 Business Solutions here with Dave Carey, our security team lead. We're going to talk today about password and identity management in the new decade. So the agenda is basically, why do we have to discuss passwords in the layers of security context? And then some facts you might be interested in. Why does it matter to you? We're going to do a couple demos, LastPass and a product Dave calls PassVault, and then we'll give you some specific recommendations. But let's just pause a minute and step back and say, why does it matter? Why does it really matter that we have to get into passwords with employees and personally? Why does it matter? What are we trying to do here in business? And what we're trying to do in business, what executives, what managers are interested in is productivity, profitability, innovation, and risk management. So I want to do more with less. This is the reason we implement and use technologies and new technologies, new tools, is so we can be more productive, we can be more efficient. Secondly, profitability. Whether you're a nonprofit, a government agency, or a business, you're in business to be sustainable or to make money. We have to pay the bills. We can't go all Chrysler or GM. We can't go bankrupt. Thirdly, could we be different than our competitors? How can I differentiate myself from my competitors? Could I use technology or tools to do that? But lastly, most important, managers, executives are interested in risk management, financial, physical, technological. Today, we're talking about technology risk to you personally or to your business. How can passwords effectively used help protect your business? I'm going to turn it over to Dave Carey, talk about how bad is it and why should we care?
All right, thanks, Mike. First of all, I think it's important to understand that the world continues to change more quickly every day. We continue to see more and more businesses getting ransomed to the tune of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. It's no longer a question of if I get breached, it's a matter of when, and businesses are beginning to wake up to that fact. So I like to think that it's similar to what you hear when something bad happens in a neighborhood and people would say, well, this used to be a very quiet neighborhood. Used to be you could leave your doors unlocked at night, never have a problem. But once something happens, people hear about it, they start locking doors, windows, and everything else, so they can start putting up some kind of defensive mechanisms in place because they don't want to be next. The problem is, who are you keeping out? Maybe the person that was just walking by and saw an opportunity didn't even really have to jiggle the door handle to know there was an opportunity there. What do you do about the person that's maybe a little bit more determined? This is why we need a good defense in depth strategy, and passwords are just a small step in that direction that organizations need to go in. Organizations need to elevate their security strategy so they're not the house with the window ajar and no deadbolt perhaps. So looking at passwords, the top 15 most used passwords of 2019, and incidentally, if you looked at the chart for 2018, it's almost exactly the same. You've got passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, password, I love you, etc., etc. These are so commonly used out there. Hackers know this, and they have tools out there that'll actually take these passwords and try and hammer your environment to see if they can get in. And then, for example, take a look at what season is it. Right now, it's winter 2020. I bet there's people that are probably using that as a password. Spring's not too far off. Soon that password will be spring 2020. So let's elevate the risk. Common passwords, as we've talked about. Short passwords, anything related to your identity, your name, business name in that password, putting it on a post-it note, under your keyboard. Analysis reveals most common words used in password combinations are related to love, There's been a lot of news about various breaches where data was stolen or passwords leaked. You yourself may have been a victim of the Equifax breach, as well as other sites that maybe you had a password stored. What are the chances some of those users' exposed passwords was also their work password? Why does it matter? Actually, 65% of those are the same password used everywhere. So password reuse is a big problem. Weak passwords, as we've talked about, very easy to hack. And of course, if I have a password and can get into your environment, I'm going to start stealing information, stealing data, potentially ransom the environment. All leads to fairly extreme loss of dollars. So how many passwords would you guess have been compromised so far? Would you be interested to know how many passwords are now in the Have I Been Pwned database? What would you say, Mike? 1 million, 5 million?
I'm going with 10 million.
10 million, not 100?
That's a big one.
Well, actually, it's 555,278,657. But there's a few cyber criminals out there that have a pretty good idea of how we think and how we come up with the passwords we use. So in many cases, again, they have tools that they take this information and see if you're vulnerable to those very passwords that are out there in that database. So what are some answers?
All right, one answer, Dave, is a password manager. And there's a lot of good ones out there. I'm going to show you LastPass. It is what we recommend for our clients. It has an enterprise version and it has a personal version. I use it personally and for the enterprise. You can merge the two when you're in a business environment. So you can find your personal and your business passwords. Look at one of the imperatives with password management is you must always use different passwords. We had a client recently, about 3 months ago, that we went in, had a older senior owner who said, we will use the same password because it's the one I can remember. He used it personally, he used it for every business account and mandated it in the organization. And we found it on the dark web exposed for the whole world to buy or see. This is what we rail against at i3 Business Solutions. You must use a different password for every account, and that creates a nightmare. And that is why we want to use a password manager of some sort. I've been using LastPass for years and years and years. I'll show you how I use it. Number one, when I click on the icon that you're now seeing, LastPass sits in the browser. And I can just right click, I can click on the icon and say, what am I looking for? Now, what I like about this is if I want my personal Quicken password, I can come here and get my Quicken account, right click, copy the password, and log into this application on my desktop. QuickBooks or Quicken, an application password is maintained in here. And I can quickly get to that password. I don't have to remember it, and I don't have to type it in. I can just copy it, paste it, and get to work. Similarly, for my enterprise application, for your enterprise application, right click on that application, copy the password, and I'm getting to work. So that's very important to me. The second area that we use is the recently used passwords. So for me, I come down to my recently used sites. My goodness, there's a lot of sites I go to frequently. I click on that and I copy that. So copy the password, right click, copy, or just log into the website. If it's a website, I click on the ID and log in. So I want to show you what's contained in this information, because all of my secure information is available in LastPass in a very 256 character encryption, a very secure manner. It's available synced for a whopping $1 a month for personal users. For business, it's somewhere around $4 a month. For $1 a month, I've got this on my cell phone and I've got it in my browser. So I can get to this anywhere in the world. So this, I'm going to actually open this application. This is all fake data, and this website is defunct, and that's why you can't see it right now. I'm going to go back to that, and I'm going to say I want to edit that information. I'm going to edit this one, edit the website. What information can I put in here? Certainly I've got the URL, so I can click on it, immediately open it. It will autofill the password. It'll autofill the username and the password. It'll provide me a history of the passwords, and I can put secure information in, because my goodness, a number of years ago, what was the first in the name of the pet? What was the first pet we had? So I put that in there, and really, I don't remember my first grade teacher's name, but I think it was something like Miss Like. So this is dummy information I put in here. But if I want to remember those 3 questions, what were the answers? What was my best friend way back then? It could have been 3 different people. So I can put that information in there. I can keep my social security number. If I'm booking flights for somebody and I need my wife's social security number, I can have it in a secure location. I can keep my password number and the expiration date, and for friends and family, so that if I'm booking flights for them, I can keep my bank information and my routing information, so it's always accessible when I need it. So this can be a powerful tool for what you're trying to accomplish. I want to mention one more thing here as Dave moves into his presentation, and that is my methodology for password management is a passphrase. So I have to remember only 2 passwords in the whole world. I have to remember my business login for my Windows desktop when I come in the office, which gets me into Office 365, gets me into my work applications. That is 1 password, and I need to remember a 2nd password, and that is LastPass. That'll get me into everything else. An example of a long password that I'll use that I can remember, 2 of these, is a song, first line of a song. And in this case, I used "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother," and then I threw a random, or maybe significant, but a random year on there. And this is a very powerful password when you run it through Dave's system. So that's my methodology. Now, those 2 passwords I do write down in a secure location. By the way, they're written down in a location that my family knows and I know. So my digital assets are available should something happen to me. 2 passwords, you're into everything that I have access to. I'm going to turn it back over to Dave, and he'll talk to you about how to build secure passwords.
All right, thanks, Mike. So I think it's important to understand that when you're putting a password together, or putting your passwords in LastPass, that password that you use for LastPass is a very strong password as well. It doesn't really help if you protect all your passwords or try to protect them and then use a very simple password that's easy to crack, and we'll get into that in a minute. But so what do we recommend? Well, password history, we're looking at 24 days worth of, or the last 24 passwords, I should say. Minimum password age of 3 days, a maximum password age of 1 year, provided MFA is enabled. Using spaces in Active Directory passwords. 15 character passwords, and we'll talk about why here in a minute. And then, of course, using a password manager. So why 15 characters? Why not 14 or 13? When you type in a password in a Windows environment, it actually stores your password within Windows locally on the computer. If it's 14 characters or less. If it's 15 characters, it breaks that ability to store that password, and so it doesn't keep it. Why is that important? If I, as a hacker, get onto your system somehow, I'm going to go find that password file, and I'm going to crack it to the point where I can see all your password hashes that are in there. If I do that and I have some password that then gets me to systems that you don't want me getting into, then I pretty much can own your environment. So if you're using 15 character password, doesn't store it, I can't see that information. So I wanted to talk about this, what I call a key concept. That's not my idea. I know there are other people that talk about how to do this. I've just termed it a key concept. And the whole idea, if you look at the first 8 characters in the demo here, DLG 3J4MN, they're all the same. 4 different passwords. So what I've done then is added a key word, if you will, on the end of each one of those. And so initially I started with passion. Well, passion can be cracked in 2 days. So then I thought, okay, let me change that up. I went, changed the A to an @ sign, an S to a capital S. Still crackable in 3 months, 2 days. So I thought, okay, let me change an S to a $sign and the 0 to an O. Or I should say an O to a 0. 2 months, 5 days. So I thought, all right, I'm gonna put a capital P in there, and instead of the word passion, I'm gonna put this asterisk in the middle. All of a sudden I had 2 years. So it's like, all right, we're getting a lot better here. So how do I know that? How do I know that that's how long it takes? I want to introduce you to a website here. It's called Passfault. And this gives you the ability to enter in a password and then click the Analyze button to analyze the strength of your password. You can see in this example, this particular password that was entered, and then the cracking hardware was changed to a $5,000 machine. So if a cracker had a machine that was fairly beefy, a lot of hardware in it, a lot of capability, it would take them, as you can see, a long time to try and crack that password. Just by demo, I'm going to type in a password. I'm going to change this to just an everyday computer and click Analyze. And you'll see it's less than a day. Now if I take that same password.
Is this your passion type password, Dave?
No. What I'm doing is taking that same password and putting spaces in between the words. So if I actually typed the phrase, so instead of no spaces like a lot of passphrases would have, I'm typing out a sentence. Like if you're reading it out of a book and it has spaces in between each word, all of a sudden it's 58 centuries. So introducing spaces in a passphrase actually helps you, makes that password stronger, makes it more difficult for people to be able to crack them. So going back to my key concept here. So as you can see, first 8 characters are all the same in the first 4 passwords. Well, then I changed up the front 8 characters to something else, used my same key, and got 14 years. So I thought this is a great way that, let's say you've got people that are like just totally averse to trying to use a password manager. I'm thinking, you know, grandma, your aunt, your sister, people that aren't very technical at all, and the idea of using LastPass or some other tool is just so foreign to them that they're just totally lost. Go ahead and write down those first 8 characters on a piece of paper. Who cares if somebody sees it? As long as you're keeping your key not written down, only you know what that is, nobody can make use of that password. So for example, I went, okay, Office 365. I need to log into my email. My first 8 characters are DLG3J4MN. My key is passion with the star, capital P. Of course, I'm not writing that down somewhere. I'm just showing by example. Yeah. And then the same thing with bank. Again, first 8 characters, something different. write that down. And then again, adding passion on the end of that. I can remember passion much easier than I can remember these 8 characters that are a mix of who knows what.
Nice.
So I want to say that just, secure passwords, they're just one small part of what needs to be a strong defense in-depth strategy. Can't really talk about passwords without talking about MFA or multi-factor authentication. When we look at multi-factor authentication and we're looking at, this ATM machine here, think of multi-factor authentication as something, a password or a PIN, and then something you have like an ATM card, or in some cases, it's your cell phone that has an authenticator app on it. To me, this is a must-have for any account where you have personal information, your banking data, work accounts. Don't forget, if you have a VPN or you're using remote desktop services, those also need to have some type of multi-factor. Because if I get your password, I might not be able to log into your email because you're using MFA, but I could still get in on your company VPN or at RDS services or any other service that you're exposing to the internet. Why is MFA so important? There are a number of tools out there that bad guys can use, or that pen testers even will come in and use against your organization to show you your vulnerabilities. Some of those tools are called password spray, and they'll spray it against Active Directory and Office 365. And they're using passwords like the winter 2020, just trying to find one user that's using that password. And if I can get on one user's computer, then my job is to laterally move from there to other resources that you have in your environment. But there's tools that can dump passwords for offline cracking. There are tools that'll read memory of a device and pull the password hashes right out of memory. There are tools that'll steal your passwords that are stored in browsers like Chrome. So I imagine you probably have some people out there that, while they're at work visiting their bank website, and guess what? Maybe they happen to save that password in their browser. Now I have access. So do this.
Indeed. Length is strength. The longer the password, at least 15 characters, and if you can use a methodology like Dave described or a passphrase, you can get to 20 characters easily and remember that. Secondly, use a password manager or a key concept like Dave said, a word that only you know, and you will apply to your password methodology. Multi-factor authentication absolutely is a requirement at i3 Business Solutions. Dave and I were talking to another CISSP who is a little over the edge on security, but he has over 50 MFA password accounts. Virtually anything he logs into has multi-factor authentication. I will tell you, I'm up around 8 or 10, and I'm submitting that in your business, if you're not using multi-factor on between 5 and 10 different products, you need to get that train on the track right now. Update your company password policy and standards. Do that. Make that a to-do. Start enforcing password policies in your company, and call or email i3, Dave, me for a password and security assessment. Get that done. Protect your company's risk. Strengthen your internal password policy. Mike Ritzema, Dave Carey signing off. Thanks for joining us. Secure your organization.